If you look at Second Life, a lot of the things that people have been aspiring to with Web3, so for example, people being able to really make their living doing things together in a virtual world, that all happens in Second Life. It's a smaller community, but you still see thousands of people in Second Life for whom it's their full-time job. You see people able to make money and keep almost all of those returns on their work to themselves. So I'm pretty sure that a fees model works fine, doesn't have the negative impact that ads do. As Second Life kind of became really well known, which was about 2006, we saw all of the same companies, particularly the brand companies, experimenting with trying to offer products and ideas to people inside the virtual world, inside Second Life. A lot of those experiments weren't successful, but I think it was more, again, because the community was much smaller and wasn't going to become a mainstream community yet that, say, shoe companies could sell shoes into. But I think those experiments, and you can look back at them and they're fascinating, and they're the same things that are going on today, demonstrate that there is a there. I mean, the idea of wearing virtual clothes that were made by a virtual design company and have interesting brands on them, sure. I think that'll be a lovely thing for us to do, and potentially, if we do it right, a lot less carbon, a lot more carbon efficient than doing it in the real world with real clothes. Second Life is continuing to grow. All of these companies that are playing around with virtual worlds, and I think we're still playing around, all of us. It's still early. You're not using it every day, I bet. I'm not. So we're still not quite there yet in terms of making it work for everybody, but I do think that we are going to see more and more of it. COVID obviously took us all a giant step in the direction of maybe socializing online, maybe going to a live event online, maybe going to a conference like this online. We now have the possibility that we might want to do that at least sometimes. And so there's going to be a lot of product and a lot of technology work to follow that opportunity. And we're definitely going to start spending more time, but I think it's going to be more gradual than the hype we're feeling around it right now, where everybody look at this conference is just saying metaverse, metaverse, it's all the metaverse. There are a bunch of virtual worlds like Decentraland, Crypto Voxels, and others that are really fascinating, that are doing really interesting work. Those two I mentioned are all the way over on the Web3 side, so they're doing everything in the virtual world is completely stored on the blockchain, is completely decentralized. From a moderation and a governance perspective, that's actually not the final solution we're going to get to. We know that from experimenting with it at Second Life. There's a balance between centralized and decentralized where we all end up happy. And Web3 right now is way over on the decentralized side, kind of experimenting. Where we're going to end up is somewhere in between. Second Life is also somewhere in between, a mix of centralized processes like around moderation, and then some decentralized things like around ownership and currency. So I think that these experiments that are happening today are interesting, but there are some hard technical problems that aren't solved by any of the products out there, and I think that Second Life is perhaps closest to solving. And that is animating an avatar while you're communicating with someone or attending an event in a way that you'd be comfortable with. We're not there yet. We're there perhaps for sound, but we're not there yet for your expression as an avatar. The other problem is getting 500 people in a conference together. That doesn't work yet either. We're not technically there yet in terms of how many people can be in one place. And by the way, the decentralization ideas around blockchain actually just make that much, much harder to get to lots of people in one place. I think that there's more baloney and hype in Web3 than there is real stuff. I do think the general idea of a digital currency, not a cryptocurrency necessarily, but money that's digital, there's a lot of potential positive impact for humanity to doing that, but the way that we're experimenting with it with cryptocurrency right now is not the final thing that we're going to be using. So I think there's a lot, and then on Web3, I think there's a lot of hype around trying to take back power from Facebook and Google. But websites and a lot of the internet technology, they're already really well decentralized. And so moving everything onto the blockchain may in many cases just be a way for somebody to make a quick buck rather than a way for you to actually become decentralized. Websites are pretty decentralized. One thing I am worried about is that, because Second Life has its own economy, but the way that the economy is managed is, again, somewhere in between the way the Federal Reserve prints new money or changes interest rates and the way with Web3, you have no more money being made, there's a fixed pool, and everybody's fighting over it, in this kind of computer lottery game we're playing. I think it's important for everybody to realize that having a scarce amount of money that a bunch of early adopters have gotten and you have to fight over now is not at all a safe path for people. And Second Life has demonstrated that you can play around with digital currencies and enable them in a way that works right. For example, the exchange rate between the Second Life currency and the US dollar has stayed exactly the same over 20 years, during which the system has grown enormously. That's because we managed it in a different way than the way cryptocurrency is managed, or sort of not managed. And so I am worried, and I am constantly sort of trying to remind everyone that digital currency is in our future, but cryptocurrency in many ways is both full of hype and not yet done right. And I think it's important for technologists and for everybody to kind of keep looking for the solutions that are coming next and not jump too quickly into what we've got today. Second Life it kind of has a Federal Reserve desk. So as Second Life grows and as people make more stuff, there needs to be more currency. This is a standard component of basic economics that many cryptocurrency people seem to have not read. So you need to make more currency as people are using a system because their productive capabilities grow. This is exactly what a government does by printing more currency and typically giving it to central banks. What Second Life did that's actually maybe closer to the final endpoint we need to get to is two things. One was we give everybody that uses it a basic income. In those cases where we know it's one-to-one, we know one person has one avatar. The second thing is we actually create new currency and sell it on the open market while transparently telling everyone what we're doing. So everyone at any moment can know exactly what transactions are happening in Second Life and how much currency there is, but the currency is growing as people use the service more. And so that is an incredibly important example of the way a digital currency can work that doesn't cause this terrible everybody scrambling to get in early. A currency where you're scrambling to get in early isn't a currency. It's some kind of a commodity or a hedge or something.